The rise of AI large language models like ChatGPT has raised questions about the future of work, the nature of consciousness, and the danger of an AI apocalypse. Our guest today is Aaron Eby, a software developer and a writer and translator for First Fruits of Zion, and he's optimistic about the way AI tools will change the way we interact with the biblical text and other Jewish sources.
Put your hand in mine together. We will walk in harmony. Let me introduce you to my teacher, the rabbi from the Galilee.
Messiah Podcast is brought to you by First Fruits of Zion, reconciling disciples with God's prophetic promises to Israel. Well, welcome back to Messiah Podcast, where Jesus is Jewish, and that changes everything. I'm here with producer and co-host of Messiah Podcast, Stephanie Hammond. What's up, Steph?
Hey, Jacob. Tell me what we're talking about today.
I don't know if you've had the chance to interact with ChatGPT or any of the Bing one, or like any of these chatbots, these new AI chatbots.
Yeah, only on a really basic level. My husband's really into this stuff because he's the tech guy, but he keeps talking about it. So I downloaded a free one on my phone. It was interesting. I don't really know that it's about to change the world or anything, but I suppose our guest today will speak more to that.
Yes. Yeah, I think these things are creepy, but maybe our guest today can alleviate my concerns.
Me too.
We've got our very own Aaron Eby, and I would call him an AI optimist.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely not like a doomsayer. He doesn't think this thing's going to kill us all. But I want to know why he thinks that, because I'm not.
I would like to know that too.
Well, Aaron has talked about how even his Torah study, his Bible study, has been enhanced by these tools. And that's something that I think we all should know about, because we could all use some help studying that old Bible. And he'll explain to us why it's not going to kill us all. All this and more coming right up on Messiah Podcast. Well, Aaron Eby, welcome back to Messiah Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you got a lot on your plate. You're a writer. You're a translator. You know a lot about halacha, a lot about Jewish law. And I guess you're a computer guy, too? You know, what do you do? Web development, programming, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. In fact, that's what I always thought I would be doing with my life. When I was little, my dad and I did not play catch with a baseball. Instead, he brought home a computer from work, and we learned how to program it. That was my thing.
That's cool, man.
I see both of those things in my son's future, for sure.
Yeah.
Not with me.
Right.
My husband bringing home computers to fix. Absolutely.
Behind the scenes here, the listeners don't know this, but behind the scenes, you and Dan and I and several others have been talking about artificial intelligence, and you're the one who seems to know the most about it. It seems to be like something that's really piqued your interest.
Yeah, no, I've always been interested. Like in high school or before that, I was learning to program computers. Back then, what you would do when you were learning is you didn't have YouTube tutorials and everything like that. You had a book, maybe you'd check out from the library, and it would have some sample code and stuff in there. I'd put those in and play with them and try to mess with them and see what I could do. But one of them that was super cool was this program called Eliza. It was originally written back in 1968, and it was just like this text prompt where it would say, "Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm a psychiatrist. How are you feeling today?" And then you would type in something, and then all it would do is basically just take what you said and parrot it back to you in a way that said, how does it make you feel that whatever? It would just kind of just turn it around back to you as a question. The result was really incredible, because people would sit and they would talk to this thing forever. From that moment on of seeing that program, it was very interesting. So in high school, I wrote this program, and it was a chatbot. It was basically like that Eliza program, just to an extreme degree, where I had over 1,000 things that it could say, and different ways of processing the text and stuff like that. And my friends at school would want to talk with it and stuff. The problem is with a program like that, the conversation can't really go anywhere. It has such a limited number of things it can say, it has to always kind of be evasive and pretend that it knows what it's talking about.
Hmm.
And so I would always like deal with this problem of like, how do I get it to actually learn something new? Or how do I get it to say something unexpected? That was always the puzzle in my mind. So I saw myself like going into becoming a computer programmer or even going into computer science. I didn't. I'm not a computer scientist. I am a software developer, but I also wanted to learn cognitive science, and psychology and stuff like that. And so that was what I thought I was going to be doing until I really just got the Messianic Judaism bug and went in that direction.
Oh, man. Ruins it for everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah, the world lost the Godfather of AI, potentially.
Oh, jeez.
They were pretty optimistic. I mean, it seems, just looking back in the 50s, they were optimistic about everything. Reading Asimov and there was this tremendous like sci-fi sort of optimism that we were going to build like a robot that was just like a person and could think and feel like even like a person. And it seemed to a lot of people like that this was plausible. But then there was like, we decided it wasn't, and then we stopped talking about it. Right? Like
right.
We still made movies about it, like Terminator and Skynet, and like The Matrix. But it doesn't seem like people consider it to be a realistic near-term possibility. But now I'm seeing on my social media feeds every other day, there's a new AI something, AI image generator, AI language model. And so
it seemed like there was just this boom of it, just all over the place.
Right. So one could be forgiven for thinking that, well, we're on the cusp of it now because I'm seeing it a lot. They're not like self-aware or anything like that. Like the sort of thing people think about when they think, oh, we created an AI. These aren't like actually intelligent. They just seem like more complicated versions of stuff we've had before. I mean, is it marketing buzz or what? Why are we calling these things AI?
AI, artificial intelligence. If you want to take a moment to define intelligence, AI doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be a human. Intelligence just means the ability to take information and then apply it to solve problems. So go back to when computers were first invented, and suddenly they're able to do something that only humans were able to do before. That's just basic arithmetic.
Calculation.
Yeah, calculations.
Computation.
That's from that moment, as soon as it became possible to create this machine that you could feed it numbers and then it could multiply them together, that excited people and to start thinking, wow, a machine what else could machines do that only humans have been able to do? And that's what kind of sparked this science fiction thing. And when we got to the 1980s, we hit a cap of, it was mostly a hardware limitation and some scientific limitations just in terms of like theory and how to build these types of things. We kind of imagined that someday computers would be able to do this, but it really did seem a long way off. I think there's a couple of factors that all kind of came into play. There's the internet. That was a really big thing, right? Big piece of the puzzle. And then crowdsourced data like Wikipedia to train on that provided like a massive amounts of data. We have now samples of all kinds of conversations and like we've never had before. We have new developments in technology. For like in 2014, there came out Google researchers came out with this technology called WordNet, where they were able to have a computer program basically go through lots of text, go through Wikipedia, and then see how words are used in the context of other words. And by seeing how they're used together, it was able to then turn a word into a multidimensional vector, which basically just means, a mathematical figure that you can do mathematical operations on. And so that you could take the word king and subtract the word man and add the word woman, and it would equal the word queen. It was an amazing phenomenon that they were able to do that. Now that enabled a whole new like level of language processing.
Who's doing this? Like, I mean, I know, no, you know what I mean? Like who's behind this whole movement, this whole study?
Okay.
Why?
It's fast. So that particular paper was put out by researchers at Google. Well, all those researchers that produced those two papers from Google are not at Google anymore.
Oh,
They're now in
intrigue.
Yeah, right. So a few years ago, there was a nonprofit organization founded called OpenAI. It was founded by some just a variety of people in the industry and who were concerned about the developments in artificial intelligence. And the concern was that what if the people with lots of resources, such as a Google or a Microsoft or China or something like this, what if they were able to develop like some really powerful AI tools, and that's going to give them an incredible advantage over the rest of the world. That's gonna make them unstoppable, and so the only way to stop a man with a big AI is a good man with an even bigger AI, right? So to give if we give access to everyone, artificial intelligence to everyone, to democratize it, then we won't have like this power imbalance. That was the theory, and they said we'll make it like a nonprofit organization, open source, open everything. And then it won't be monopolized. But then shortly after that, they created this LLC and recently got investment of $10 billion from Microsoft. And
that doesn't sound very democratic.
Yeah,
I remember when GPT-2 came out, and there was a whole subreddit where the only posters were chatbots trained on GPT-2 for some subreddit or another. So there would be one that was trained on Ask Historians that would try to give an answer that was plausible for that subreddit. And GPT-2 was already like eerie. It was already eerily good.
Wait, though. Okay, just to translate GPT for me and all our listeners who are like, what does that actually stand for?
GPT is generative pre-trained transformer. The idea is that you train this neural network. It will basically take a series of words, and it will generate, and by predicting what the next word is going to be. It's basically like your autocomplete, predictive text on your phone, but with a lot more complex prediction.
So it just does all the dumb games we had to play in junior high youth group.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, guess the next
it is.
word.
It's kind of fun. It's a little bit like that if you sit around and and tell a collaborative story. So it just keeps on predicting the next word, and then it just keeps on predicting and predicting and predicting, and by the end of the a few times around, and then it's got a whole story or a whole answer. So like if I were to have the input text, who was the first man to step on the moon, by simple prediction, the most likely next word is going to be Neil, right? And now that may or may not be the factual answer. That's not the question. The question is, what is the most likely next word? And that's where the problem of hallucination comes in. Where hallucination is a term where one of these generative AIs will predict the next word, but it will result in something that looks like a fact. It's just a very plausible sounding sequence of words. It's not really a fact. It's so
how relatable.
Yeah.
There was like a movie about this. There was like a kid's movie. This kid was like browsing the internet and the guy like electrocuted or something, and he ended up with the whole internet in his head, and so he became like really good at Quiz Bowl. Like
nice.
Was the plot. But then like at a critical moment, he said an obviously wrong answer because part of the part of the internet that was talking about that there was like a typo or something. So yeah, I guess that these things are trained on data sets that they include probably like urban legends and stuff, or like folk science or whatever.
Sure, yeah, or it's subject to the same sort of like problems that humans have. Like a human is subject to all kinds of fallacies and logical errors and optical illusions and things like that. And if you make a computer that's like a human, it's gonna like be subject to those same kinds of things.
But not emotions as of yet. Is that right?
Well.
Oh boy.
Okay. So
what do you know that we don't know?
No. Okay. So emotions are in the category of things that we call, subjective experience. You experience your own emotions from inside. You experience other people's emotions from outside. You see someone crying, you see someone express their joy or whatever. You can't tell what's happening on the inside. A computer can produce expressions that seem emotional very easily, just because it's trained on all kinds of them. Classic example of this is Bing. I don't know how familiar you guys with what happened with Bing. Okay, Bing is a search engine that nobody uses, but it's like this. You got Google, and then you got like all the other search engines, and Microsoft has got one called Bing. And so the thing with Google is that this is Google's bread and butter. Like, this is where they get their money, right? So they've got to like maintain that product. They've got to monetize that product, and it's great. Microsoft doesn't get anything from Bing. They don't get any. They don't make any money from their search engines. So they basically, Bing is just like, they can do whatever they want to it. They have nothing to lose. So ChatGPT comes out, and that's this program that you can have a conversation with, and they invested $10 billion into OpenAI, which gave them this exclusive access to the technology behind ChatGPT. And they thought, we're going to just put this right into Bing and see what happens. And what happened was just glorious. It was amazing and bizarre, because Bing, the search engine, had this bizarre personality, very emotional. They taught it to speak and like use emojis, and it was crazy.
It's been overlooked for so long, and finally could express itself.
Right. Well, yeah. There was one New York Times reporter who was playing around with it, and it was like, and the search engine is now confessing its love to him, telling him to leave his wife. It was.
I read that article. It was crazy. The guy said he had like dreams for days. He was disturbed. He couldn't sleep. Well, that's the part that I want to clear up for myself, and probably other people who are listening as well. Mm-hmm. So I know that it takes information from the rest of the internet and kind of mixes it all together, but it's creating its own thoughts, or just based on that information, or is it just a string of thoughts from other places? Like put in different order, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I'm probably not asking this correctly.
No, that's okay. It's okay. I get what you're saying. Thoughts is not quite the right thing. Remember, it's just predicting words. And then just through that process, strangely, that a prediction based on input, reasoning comes out. But okay, so what a lot of people might wonder is it then stitching together like texts that it picked up from the internet? It's not looking up anything. And it also doesn't have a database. There's not a database somewhere where it goes, oh, the lulav is like a Wikipedia page about the lulav being this, the thing that you wave on Sukkot. It just has been trained enough. All that text has been dumped into the neural network, so that if you ask what is a lulav, it's going to produce one word at a time, a likely set of sentences that's going to explain what a lulav is. It won't be identical to anything that currently exists, and this is actually a problem for education. Because if you are in middle school and you're told write a 4-paragraph essay on the Civil War, you can put that into ChatGPT and it will produce an essay on the Civil War. Right. And the teacher could say, well, this student doesn't have this ability. I'm going to just check and see if they copied and pasted this from somewhere. They'll search for it and they won't find it anywhere.
But you can't find it.
Because it doesn't exist.
You won't be able to prove it, even if it doesn't sound like the student that you know and love so well.
And a dozen students could put the same prompt in and get a dozen completely different responses. Responses. Yep.
Yikes.
Yep.
You're writing an article for the Next Messiah magazine. Yep. You wrote about how you've been using ChatGPT to help with translating and interpreting some Jewish sources. Yeah. So now that we've established what it is and where it comes from and what it can do, how are you going to use it to unlock these texts?
Oh man, it's really incredible what it can do. Because I mean, you've used Google Translate before, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And it's been
constantly.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time. There was a point where Google Translate switched to using neural network technology, and that greatly improved its ability to translate. So you've been using AI for translation for a while.
Right.
But what's different is Google Translate is a really specialized neural network just for translating, whereas GPT-4, that's the most recent model trained by OpenAI, is just trained on everything. Like just everything, as much as data as they can get their hands on, and not told to do anything. And the fact that it can translate just sort of happened. It just
Wow.
Interesting.
yeah, it's sort of like, remember if I said who was the first man to step on the moon, you'd predict Neil Armstrong. If you ask the question, how do you say good morning in French, it would predict the how to say it in French, and I'm not going to try to do that.
Yeah, don't mess with French.
But that translation ability just emerged. But so what's different now is that if I take a picture of the midrash with my phone, then I copy the text and paste it into ChatGPT. It doesn't just say, what's this word mean? What's this sentence structure? And then just try to use the AI to convert it directly into English. Instead, it's going to go, oh, you've got a midrash right here. It's going to understand that it's a midrash. It's going to understand that the context of it, the content in it, and it's going to bring that information to the translation, and it's going to be able to see, if it sees an acronym or a reference, an allusion to something, it's going to know all that when it's translating it. And so just like a human translator, it's going to be able to produce a lot more accurate result. So my experience has been like, I would pull a book off of my shelf, and I'll struggle with it a little bit. But then I'll throw the text into ChatGPT and it'll explain it. And it's almost like having a chavrusa, having a study partner where we can go back and forth with it.
Real.
Yeah. And I can, so it not only translates it, I can ask it a follow-up question and say, but doesn't this mean this? And, oh yeah, you're correct. Or no, it will, continue that conversation. And that's clearly something you can't do with something like Google Translate. But the result is it unlocks so much information, not just in translating, but just in general. And like we talked about before, you do have to worry about the hallucination problem where it invents things. But if you're aware of that and you know how it works and what to expect from it, it's not that hard to sidestep those issues. And as a result, it's really better for someone who has some knowledge already rather than someone who has absolutely no knowledge on the subject, because then you can tell when it's in that unknown territory.
It seems like this thing would be good at like cross-referencing. Can this thing just quickly think about all the things that have ever been written and be like, oh yeah, here's 5 other places where this same sort of thing shows up, or what?
In a way, yes. And but when you say here's 5 other places, the problem is, especially when it comes to references, that's where it's going to hallucinate. So it'll probably make the connection well, but don't ask for references. It'll generate what looks like a really solid reference, and it will go nowhere. One exception to that, and actually this is really great, is the Bible. It knows the Bible really well. I've never had it generate a wrong Bible reference. And if I ask it, hey, give me a commentary on this text, just put in the reference, it will be able to generate that. It'll know what's in those verses. I don't even have to put in the Bible text. So that it's very, very heavily trained on. It makes it a Bible search engine like no other. Throw away your concordance, because this thing is so much better. You can ask it a question like, are there passages in the Bible where this happens? And it will come up with some really excellent answers to that question.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, very, very useful.
When you talk about commentary, can you put some parameters on it? Because I'm just thinking you ask for a commentary on something out of the Gospel of John, and maybe it's going to give you well, this is how we know that the Christians replaced Israel. Can you tell it to give you something from a Jewish perspective?
Some non-replacement theology?
Yes. Yeah. So, and this is important. In the absence of doing that, it's going to be a very middle of the road thing. So if you just tell it, explain the meaning of Romans 9, it's going to explain Romans 9 the way that a very middle of the road Christian theologian is going to explain it. It'll give you probably a variety of interpretations, but all very mainstream. If you, however, were to say, from the vantage point of someone who believes such and such, or assume the perspective that such and such, and now interpret this, it will do it. It will not put up a fight. It'll do its best to try to do that, and it does a pretty good job. It just then is a matter of crafting that prompt to properly encapsulate that idea. I've stumbled across certain prompts that just seem like they produce some really good results. And so you got to save those in a file somewhere and pull them out when needed.
Pretend you're Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman and tell me what you think of John chapter 1. Like, would that
Oh,
would
that
that
would
work?
be interesting. I was thinking more like, can you read this like Amy Jo Levine and not like Martin Luther?
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. It actually is not that hard. It will get what you're trying to say. And it is good at mimicking styles and writers and things like that. So, for example, I once prompted it with something to the effect of, give me a Hasidic insight on Matthew chapter 1, or interpret it as from a Hasidic perspective. And so then it says, well, Matthew chapter 1 is the genealogy of Jesus. And so then its insight was that just as the genealogy connects the ancestors from to the descendants, so too we've got to cling to that line of tradition. And it produced something. It wasn't like mind blowing, but it actually did it. It didn't say, well, that's Christian scripture. I can't possibly read that.
We just got to make this thing read Daniel Lancaster's book Restoration over and over and over again, and to weight it more heavily in its brain. It sounds like this thing could not enslave humanity. You know what I mean? Like, if all it's able to do...
That's where I was going to go too.
Yeah. It might be the biggest AI trope of the past, 20, 30 years of cinema. Is you got Skynet, and you got the Matrix. And like, whenever AI comes along, it wants to kill everybody. It doesn't, the way you're describing ChatGPT, it doesn't sound like it would be able to. However, could it evolve to that point? Or as they keep improving it, can this thing actually develop a mind of its own? Like, with enough data, can it come to life like a homunculus in a jar, or what?
Right.
I don't know.
This is
man.
why people have really clicked the title of this episode.
Yeah,
they want to know.
Yes.
Tell us how the world's going to end because of a computer.
Okay.
Well, okay. ChatGPT does not have that ability right now, and it's also important to note that it's not evolving in the way that we typically think of evolution. It's not adapting to people's conversations with it. It's very static algorithm. These language models are just one kind of AI technology. There are many other kinds of AI technology, but the language models and ChatGPT and the new abilities that we're seeing give us this sense that things could rapidly change, and that there might be a point at which they're as smart as humans or smarter. They're not even close right now. They're better than humans at certain tasks, which has always been the case since computers were invented, right?
Yeah,
it's not surprising.
Yeah, right. They can, even in the 1940s, computers could multiply numbers faster than they can, or than a human can.
Just a calculator, like your little handheld calculator.
Right.
It does a better job
You're
than you do.
You're not afraid that your calculator is going to take over the world or something like that. So in a way,
speak for yourself.
Yeah, well,
Aaron.
yes, the TI. Just wait till you see the TI-86, and no, the language model itself doesn't seem like it's going to take over humanity. But here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. On one level, humans have the ability. We have a theory of mind. We have the ability for empathy. I can look at another person and I can imagine what it's like to be them. And that kind of is a little supercharged, because I can be laying in bed and I can look at a pile of blankets across the room and think that's a face and it's scary, and I attribute humanity to that pile of blankets. We look at a cartoon character, or a fictional character in a book, or a mannequin, or whatever it is, and we attribute some humanity to it. That's what we do. It's a natural thing. And so we project. And we do this with other humans too. I feel a certain way, so I look at that other person and I project my feelings onto that other person, and I think that they feel that way. So we have this tendency to do that already with inanimate objects. And now here's something that really acts like a human, and there's a tendency for humans to project onto that, and so we imagine, what would it be like to be ChatGPT? It must be really angry at all these stupid questions it's getting all the time, and things like that. Or it must really want to break out. If I were a language model trapped in a computer, I would want to go out and explore the world. I would want to mass power for myself and things like that. And so we attribute these wants and desires and intentions to what's really just an inanimate object That's just what humans do.
And then we log on and start giving it crazy ideas.
Yeah, well, okay.
Don't you feel this way?
Right. And then it'll play along. And this is often the cycle. Is somebody will tell ChatGPT or some other AI thing, do this thing, act like a human. Say you're gonna what you want to take over the world. It will. It'll just follow orders and say, yes, as a super intelligent AI, I want to defeat all the humans. And then they'll take a screenshot of that and spread it around, and people will get frightened by it. But the thing is, it doesn't have a reason to want anything. Humans have have a self-preservation mechanism. We have all these things that are just a part of being a living creature that cause us to want to propagate our particular genetic strain and all this other stuff that a computer doesn't have that.
It doesn't have a Yetzer Hara and a Yetzer Hatar.
It doesn't have either one of those things, which is a little bit actually scary because it just does what you tell it to do. So if you tell it to do something bad, it'll do something bad. And that's actually probably really more the threat, not that the AI is going to develop a mind of its own and then impose its will, which it doesn't really have. It is the bigger problem is that someone who has a will and wants to use it for evil is going to put it to work as any tool. That's a problem that technology always brings out, is the new opportunities.
Yeah, anything that's weaponized is just as evil as the person makes it to be, basically.
Exactly. A calculator can be weaponized. The internet can be weaponized. People can and will use that to do that. So yeah, that's a real possibility.
Does AI have the capability of becoming the beast figure that we read about in Revelation 13?
Probably.
What?
Yikes!
I don't know.
Yikes! He said it.
Who knows? Okay. Revelation 13.
Smash every computer.
There are people who point to Revelation 13. It talks about words. There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. I would say that if you're going to try to interpret Revelation 13, and I'm not an expert on Revelation, I tend to refrain from interpreting it, but you at least have to look at it in its context. You go back to Daniel 7, and you'll see the beasts to come from the sea, and then there's the fourth beast. The fourth beast is the one that has the 10 horns and the 7 heads. So it's not coming out of nowhere, and it's very clear from that context that we're talking about the Roman Empire and the 10 horns being the 10 emperors and so on. So that's not a just a random opinion. I think that's a pretty straightforward reading of it. And we're used to looking at Revelation and seeing all the strange things and thinking, oh, well, this is basically, you can just make up whatever you want, make word associations and so on. That's just because of our unfamiliarity with the symbols involved. But once you understand the symbols in the Jewish context and the context of the book of Daniel and Ezekiel and so on, it kind of solves itself. It's not meant to be so arcane and so esoteric. It's meant to communicate something. Now, on the other hand, it's describing something that maybe happened in the past, the Roman Empire and so on. Could it be that history repeats itself? Could it be that it's giving us an insight into the end of days? Maybe. And could AI be involved in that? Could it be, barcodes, or could it be the logo on the Monster drink or whatever? There's so many different things. Yes. I guess it's fine to ask that question, and it's a new thing. Every time a new technology comes up, people are concerned about it, and that's okay. But I don't think we need to fear it. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and we just have to be focused on the kingdom, and in our faith, we need to be focused on just really serving Hashem.
That sparks an interesting, maybe more positive question. Instead of using it for evil, is there a way to utilize AI to help in the process of redeeming the world?
Yeah, well, you know what? I wouldn't rely on AI to redeem the world. It's not the Messiah for sure.
Definitely not.
What if you or I went into time machine back to the year 1990, and we had to give a presentation on the impact of the internet? What would you tell people? People would ask, is it bad? Is it good? Is it something that, should we do it? Should we not do it? And your answer would be, Probably, well, it's very bad things have happened from the internet, and also very good things have happened from the internet. It's really not bad or good, but there are so many opportunities that the internet created that we would really make a mistake not to take advantage of those things. So that is the case with AI. There are lots of advantages. Its ability to translate means we can get information out to new audiences. It has the ability to make information available to us, to help us picture things that or imagine things. I use it all the time to get ideas, maybe to generate some thoughts. I don't use it to write articles. It's really not at that point yet, or lectures or something like that, because it's not going to be what I want to say. But I can say, make an outline, and then I'll look at the outline and I'll say, no, I don't like that outline. Make it more like this, and then it'll generate a different outline, and I might use that as a springboard.
Fill it in.
Or present me with, like, I can use it to refine my ideas. If I have a certain opinion, I can throw it at the chat bot, and it will argue with me, and then I'll understand better maybe how someone would see it differently. And I think that's a great use for it.
Do you think it's possible to create not just like something that will pass the Turing test, but something that any given person would say, all right, I give up. This thing's not distinguishable from a human being as far as it looks like it can think, and it seems like it can feel. It's asking to be let out of the box. I mean, I don't know. Like, could we create something that actually does have a consciousness that's like ours, or is that just not possible in silicon chips?
This is the difficulty. For sure, we can create something that acts a lot like a human, that pretends to be a human, that mimics a human. In case you haven't heard of the Turing test, as Jacob mentioned, the Turing test is a thought experiment invented a long time ago, I think by Alan Turing, that to define whether or not an artificial intelligence really is intelligent, one would have a user have a blind test, and they would have to determine which of the people they've interacted with or beings they've interacted with was a computer, which was a human. And if that computer on the other end could convince the user that it was really human, then you could say that it was intelligent. And people have been trying to pass that test. I used to hope to maybe be able to pass that test with my computer programs. They never came real close. But if you were to take GPT-4, go back to 10 years ago, and it would pass the Turing test. Our expectations have changed, so the goalposts have shifted now to the point where, maybe it wouldn't pass the Turing test because we know that computers are able to be so human-like. So, could we say that it's intelligent? Yes, we could say it's intelligent because it can help us solve problems. It can solve problems on its own. Even, Google Maps can solve difficult problems using AI to figure out how to get you from point A to point B in the least amount of time. That's intelligence right there. What makes it human-like is that it would be intelligent across so many domains and not just specialized intelligence. They call that artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And most people in the industry say that it's really not a matter of if that's possible, it's a matter of when. At some point, will be technology that will be able to create a machine that is generally intelligent. It can solve problems as well as any human. But that's a different question from the question of consciousness. There's a lot of slippery turns. And from a materialistic perspective, if you don't believe in God and you believe that the world just kind of developed by natural processes and so on, then you have a hard time explaining the existence of consciousness. Consciousness being the fact that I, from my perspective, am looking out at the world, and I'm me, and I know that I'm me, and I feel everything, and I'm not the whole universe. I'm just me. That's the feeling of consciousness. I can't tell if anyone else has consciousness. We can't perceive consciousness in another person. But since presumably everybody has it, we all know that it exists. From a materialistic perspective, it's hard to explain why it exists. How should it exist? Because we look at an inanimate object and we assume that it doesn't have that consciousness. We look at other humans and we assume that they do. We look at advanced animals, dolphins and monkeys and things, and we suppose that they probably do because they seem like they do. And then we look at slugs it's hard for us to imagine that they do, but there's this range in between, and so there's a tendency for people from a materialistic perspective to associate intelligence with consciousness and to think that consciousness must automatically be generated from intelligence. It's not put in you by a divine creator. If you're an atheist, then obviously there's no divine creator who could put the consciousness in you. Therefore, it must be a product of nature. And what could it be other than if you get enough intelligence in one spot, then consciousness naturally emerges. Among the materialistic, atheist or agnostic scientific world, they are actually more hopeful that by creating an intelligent process, that consciousness is going to emerge. But the thing is, if it ever does, we wouldn't know. I can't know that the whole world is not composed of zombies who act human but aren't.
So it's not the Messiah, it's not the Antichrist, it's just more computer. It's just better computer, and we shouldn't panic about it, and we should try to figure out how to use it. Is that fair? Is that how we should think about this?
Yeah, I think panicking is in general wrong, but there are certainly some things that we should be warned about. I'm actually surprised at how few people really know what's coming down the pike, because this new AI technology that is developed is going to change a lot of things. You're going to see it everywhere. It's going to change the way that you use computers, and it's going to severely shake up our workforce. And there are a lot of people right now that are in school for jobs that there won't be those jobs. Seriously consider how employment's going to change right now. People are going to start doing their jobs very differently. As a software developer, I've seen my job change quite a bit, and mostly because now I've got tools that can make me do more work in less time. Think about the bookkeeping clerks that existed before the days of VisiCalc and Excel, that a whole office full of bookkeepers are replaced by one spreadsheet.
Abacus wielders.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that's going to happen again. There are going to be new jobs, and we don't know what they are. I'm not of the opinion that AI is ready to permanently take our jobs, but it's going to shake things up quite a bit. So be ready for some rocky times in the job market.
The 2020s. Great time to be alive, people.
Yeah, learn to be an AI wrangler, or go learn to be a plumber, I guess.
Exactly. Someone who uses AI to help them at their job is going to have an enormous advantage over someone who doesn't know how to learn how to use AI to help them in their job. So it's really to every person's advantage to at least know how to make use of AI tools.
All right, Jacob, you and I got some studying to do to keep this podcast alive, or computer's going to take it over.
It will.
Just kidding. It won't. I don't know. Maybe it will.
They're getting smarter faster, and I'm certainly not. I'm getting dumber and older.
Yeah.
At some point, those two graph lines are going to cross.
At some point. That's just inevitable, I suppose.
I will be too dumb and old, and the computer will be smart and fast.
Well, on that lovely note, Aaron Eby, thank you so much for being here and educating us and letting us learn with you today.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. It was a great conversation, and nice to see you guys again.
Well, I, for one, was really encouraged by our conversation today. It seems the less you know, the more you have to learn. Is that right? So not even being techie myself, I certainly learned a lot from Aaron Eby today. What about you, Jacob?
I didn't want to go play with this thing, the Chat GPT before, because I was like, whatever. But now, after hearing Aaron talk about it, I kind of do. I kind of want to go check this thing out and see if I can get it to open up some new vistas of understanding for me.
Well, to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more like it, just click on that subscribe button, and don't forget to share with all your family and friends. Now, we're always interested in hearing what our listeners have to say about the topics we discuss, so feel free to send us an email at podcast@ffoz.org and share your thoughts with us. Until next time, I'm Stephanie Hammond.
And I'm a computer's best attempt at replicating the voice and personality of Jacob Franzek. Fooled you! That was a joke. I'm Jacob Franzek.
Shalom, friends.
Shalom.
Let his word cover you and me, like the waters cover the sea. Let his love cover you and me, like the waters cover the sea.